Good evening, everybody. In front of me, I have an amazing woman of God. Her name is Megan Klein, and she's the young entrepreneur. She has the degree in the business management, and she has the big dreams, big desires. But most of all, she has very profound, very significant story that can touch entire heart of yours. And I hope you will be able to move by it the same way that I have been moved by it. And please know that no matter what happens in your life, God is in control, and put Him first. Megan, I'm so excited and so honored to have you here. You know, I've known you for almost 9 years, and sometimes knowing about person and knowing person are not the same thing. I've known about you, but I didn't know you. So now I would like you to share about you with all of us.
Well, I'm so glad to be here, Ilona. And my story just really starts with, I was a normal kid, and I had been sexually abused by a close family member when I was 5. And that went on until I was 9, until I told my mom about it. And nothing really happened. There was no consequence for this person. There was nothing that happened at all. So I felt extremely abandoned at a young age. And that abandonment just grew and grew and grew and grew. And it didn't matter, because that person was still in our lives. He was still in our lives, and all the way up until teenager. And it affected everything. It affected the way that I looked at relationships, the way that I thought about myself. And, I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up knowing God. I was never taught anything from the Bible. I was never taught about God. And so I had no idea. And I got married at a very young age. I got married when I was 17. It was an awful marriage. He was extremely abusive, verbally, mentally, physically. And he ended up stalking other women, and he murdered another woman while we were married. So I was 17 when I married him, and I was 17 when this happened. So imagine a 17-year-old pretty much by herself, nowhere to go, no one to turn to, having to deal with the abuse to begin with. And I'll never forget the day that I woke up to fire trucks and sirens and police cars outside of our apartment. And he was gone. He had left. And he had never left me by myself because he controlled everything. And so that was a red flag. And then throughout the day, there were more red flags. Like I found blood in our bathroom. And he stayed gone for about 2 days. And when he came home, I confronted him. And I asked him if he did it, and he admitted it to me. And something just told me to find out every single detail. 17 years old, and I'm standing in front of this murderer. And I made him tell me every detail, and he told me everything except one, which I found out later, that he not only broke her neck, but once she was dead, he raped her. Whoa. Yeah. So I found that out a few months later. But I held on to all of that information for 9 months. I stayed there. He threatened my mom, my sister and her kids, my brother, and I stayed to protect them. And finally, he was picked up by the police, and they took him in and were getting all their evidence and everything. And I went in and I asked to speak to the detective, and I told him everything that I knew, everything that he had told me, every detail. I never knew I had such a great memory, but I remembered everything. And they told me later on that if I hadn't come forward, that he would have been released, and that he probably would have became a serial killer, because he already had more women that he was stalking and harassing. So I was divorced by, he was arrested when I was 18, and I was divorced by 19. I had another long relationship that didn't last. He wasn't abusive or anything, it just didn't go anywhere. He left, and then I met my oldest son's father, and he was very heavy into drugs, and I followed suit. I had given up. I was done with everything, done with my life. And for 2 years, I struggled with addiction to meth. And one day I woke up after sleeping a couple days, and I don't know if I believe it was God's voice, and I believe, that it was the Holy Spirit just there and telling me that that was not my life. That was not what I was supposed to do. And I didn't know who God was. I didn't know who he was. And a few months after that, I was fully clean. And once clean, I found out that I was pregnant. And had I not gotten clean, my child would have been born addicted to meth. And yeah, it was a very slim time frame that it still amazes me to this day. He had no issues, nothing. There was nothing in him and nothing in me to transfer to him, which is amazing. So I had my son. He's 13 now. And I stayed with his father for a while longer. I think he was about 3. And he was still using drugs and drinking and just gone all the time. So I left. I packed up my son and I left. And I started struggling with depression, and I got involved with other men, and I ended up marrying a guy, and we were together for like 2 weeks. I found out I was pregnant, and we were only together for 2 weeks, so obviously it wasn't his, it was somebody from previously, which is, it can be shameful, but I have learned, I've learned. And so he started to become abusive, and after my first marriage, there was no way I was staying. I left, and I ended up back with my son's father, and we decided to try working on things. And the hardest decision that I ever had to make was I going to raise this baby? I had discussed with my mom abortion, and there was just, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that. I knew that it was a baby already. I knew that it was a life inside of mine. And I couldn't raise him knowing that I was not in a good position to give him his best life. It was either I give my oldest and then let someone else raise my second, or they both suffer immensely. This is the first time that I ever prayed to a God I didn't know and had never even learned about. And I felt prodded to look into adoption. And it wasn't anything that anyone had brought up to me. It just, I had done research on abortion, and I felt compelled to do the research on the adoption. I met with an adoption attorney, and they gave me names of couples and profiles and everything. And the whole pregnancy, I was able to back out if I wanted to. I was able to change my mind. I was able to, say, no, I'm going to raise the child. But I knew that wasn't the right thing. That would make my feelings okay. That would make me not hurt, but it wasn't the right thing for the child. So I kept looking at profiles, and every time I would look at the profiles, I would come back to the same couple over and over and over. So I asked to meet with them, and they traveled from where they lived to meet with me. And I had a list of things that, I don't want to say hoops that they had to jump through, but things that they needed to fulfill for me to know that they were going to be good parents. So they came to every doctor's appointment from then on. They were at the hospital. They had their own room at the hospital. He was with them. As soon as he was born, he was handed over to them. And up until I think it's 24 or 48 hours after the birth of your child, you can change your mind. And my selfishness wanted to change my mind. I wanted to take that child home. But I knew that it was not right for him. I knew that he needed more than I could give him. He needed the stability that I couldn't give him. He needed the life I couldn't give him. And I knew they were put in my life for a reason. So he is 9 years old now. And I get updates every year. And he is doing wonderful. What was that?
Could you choose the name for him, or they had to?
They did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my oldest son's name is Mason, and they had told us that if they had ever had two boys, one would be named Mason.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's God. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Megan, you have gone through the traumatic things with lots of pain, devastation. It's something that it's hard for us to apprehend what went through in your life. So right now I want to ask you, what was this force that drove you to strive and survive until now? What was it? Was it a voice? Was it some kind of power, strength? Was it, how did you, let's say, survive? I know you're still striving, but what kept you going?
I started praying when I was trying to figure out what to do as far as the adoption and everything. I didn't stop praying after. I continued to pray, and I felt pulled to find out more about who this God was that I was praying to. And as I'm still learning, and I'm still, figuring out who he is and who I am in him.
Yeah.
But it was that hope and that faith that something is there that is bigger than me. Something is in control over everything, and there is a plan for everything. And I've learned, that's God. He is sovereign over everything. He is in control. There may be bad things that happen, but he is in control, and he will use those bad things for good.
I'm wondering if there is a message that you have for somebody who went to the similar situation, especially the young women who are adult now, the young women who are, having their own lives. However, they have been, sexually abused in the past. What message would you give to them? Because it's a hard thing to overcome. And I know it's still a pain still following them. And I know only God is the one who is capable to remove that. What would you tell to this girl who is standing in front of you, who is like a young woman right now, who is struggling? What would you tell her? How would you comfort her?
That she is worth love. She is worth love. And she will find the most amazing love in God.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not her fault. The things that have happened to her are not her fault.
Yes.
And she is worthy of love.
Yes. I like that you said that it's not their fault. Sometimes, those women become victims, and they victimize themselves and carry this burden and responsibility of someone else's mistake in their lives forever. And that's the freedom is such a feeling that when you get that freedom from the pain, from this responsibility of someone else's action, that deliberates you, and you want to strive and live again. So Megan, I think it's very profound message when you said that it's not their fault. And I know sometimes we victimize ourselves for this silly things and carry responsibility for others. And you are right. You are unique. You are special. And you are worthy of God's love. He is crazy about you. And every woman out there who went through this pain and suffering, who is still struggling with that thought and with this feeling of guilt and pain and unworthiness. So Megan, you are just unbelievable. And I know that God has sent you a husband and you have a son. And he's been voted in the magazine as one of the most beautiful baby boy. Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
And such a proud moment for mama. My goodness, girl. I know that God has not done with you. I know he's going to be using your voice to heal somebody else's heart. Your story has been there for a reason, and he's going to rise you. He's going to make you be a survival and also this victor in your life. And I cannot wait what he has for you, Megan. I just cannot wait.
Thank you.
God bless you, Megan. And I wish you all the best. God is on your side, and he's crazy about you. Please know that.
Thank you.